Okay, so real talk. There's a generation that grew up with every answer in their pocket. Google, YouTube, TikTok, any question, anytime, instantly. And somehow, they are among the most anxious, most exhausted generations ever measured. Not despite having all that information, because of it. This is the psychology of Gen Z, the loneliness paradox. Gen Z is the most connected generation in human history, and yet psychology researchers consistently find they experience loneliness at nearly twice the rate of older generations. Twice, not slightly more, double. Here's why. The problem isn't that Gen Z doesn't have friends. Most have plenty of followers, plenty of group chats, plenty of contacts. The problem is none of it is going deep enough. You follow each other, react to stories, send memes. You've had 1,000 small interactions and maybe 3 real conversations. And your nervous system, built over hundreds of thousands of years to crave genuine human connection, knows the difference, even when your follower count doesn't. You can be in 17 conversations at once and still feel like nobody actually knows you. That feeling, that specific, quiet, devastating feeling, is one of the defining experiences of this generation. But the thing Gen Z turns to when they feel that loneliness is making it worse: the attention trap. Gen Z averages more daily screen time than any generation ever recorded. And here's what most people get wrong about this. It's not a self-control problem. It's because these platforms were deliberately engineered by some of the smartest behavioral psychologists on the planet to be impossible to put down. They know exactly what makes you stop scrolling at 11:47 p.m., exactly what notification pulls you back, exactly what content keeps you searching for something better, then serves you more of what made you feel worse. It's not an accident, it's a design. And Gen Z was handed this technology before their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control, was anywhere near fully developed. Multiple academic studies consistently show that reducing social media use produces measurable improvements in anxiety and depression in young people. Consistent, measurable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The loneliness social media creates feels less painful than the loneliness of putting the phone down and sitting with yourself in silence. That is one of the most psychologically significant traps any generation has ever been caught in. The burnout nobody sees. A significant majority of Gen Z workers report needing time off for stress, and less than half actually took it. They knew they were burning out, they could feel it, and kept going anyway. Because Gen Z grew up watching financial instability become normal, industries disappear overnight, housing costs climb to levels that made their parents' struggles look manageable. They decided, consciously or not, that stopping is more dangerous than burning out. And it starts way before the workplace. More than half of Gen Z high schoolers report chronic exhaustion from academic pressure alone, burning out before they graduate, before they have a job, before any of the things that are supposed to be the hard part. Arriving at adulthood already empty. Only around half of Gen Z rates their mental well-being as genuinely good. In the generation most educated about mental health, most willing to talk about it, and still less than half actually feel it. That gap between knowing what healthy looks like and actually being able to access it is one of the quiet tragedies of this generation. But here's where it gets genuinely unexpected: the plot twist. Gen Z is the most therapy-positive generation ever recorded. Previous generations dealt with mental health by absolutely not dealing with it, pushed everything down, called silence strength, spent decades wondering why they felt hollow. Gen Z said, no, I'm going to talk to someone. That is one of the most important psychological shifts of the modern era. But here's what stopped me cold. Research shows a significant portion of Gen Z withholds important mental health information from their actual therapist, but more than half would tell everything,
the real stuff, the stuff never said out loud, to an AI chatbot. So Gen Z normalizes therapy, advocates for therapy, talks about their therapist publicly, but tells the AI the truth. Because the AI doesn't judge, doesn't worry, doesn't make you manage its reaction on top of your own feelings. For the first time in human history, millions of people are telling their deepest thoughts to something that isn't human. And maybe that's not ideal, but maybe it's also the first crack in the wall, the first place a generation that learned to perform okay finally stopped performing. The truth. Gen Z is not broken. Gen Z is the first generation to grow up entirely inside systems not designed for human psychological health. Social media built for engagement, not well-being, an economy built for efficiency, not stability, a news cycle built for outrage, not understanding. They were handed all of that before they were old enough to understand what was being handed to them, and they're navigating it in real time, without a map, without anyone who's been here before. Nobody has been here before. Gen Z is the first. And yeah, they're anxious, lonely, exhausted in ways sleep doesn't fix, but they are also among the most self-aware generations ever studied, the most willing to name what they're feeling, the most honest about the fact that something is wrong, even before they know what to do about it. In a world that spent centuries demanding people pretend to be fine, that honesty is not weakness. That honesty is the beginning of something different. The most connected generation in history is also the one that feels the least seen. And that contradiction is the story of Gen Z.